The story of the hero Makoma, an oral tradition. Once upon a time, in the town of Senna on the banks of Zambezi, was born a child. He was not like other children, for he was very tall and strong. Over his shoulder he carried a big sack, and in his hand an iron hammer. He could also speak like a grown man, but usually he was very silent. One day his mother said to him, "My child, by what name shall we know you?" And he answered, "Call all the head of men of Senna here to the river's bank." And his mother called the head men down to the town. When they had come, he led them down to a deep black pool in the river where all the fierce crocodiles lived. "O great men," said he, while they all listened, "which of you would leap into the pool and overcome the crocodiles?" But no one would come forward. So he turned and sprang into the water and disappeared. The people held their breath, for they thought, "Surely the boy is bewitched and throws away his life, for the crocodiles will eat him." Then suddenly the ground trembled, and the pool, heaving and swirling, became red with blood. And presently the boy, rising to the surface, swam on shore. But he was no longer a boy. He was stronger than any man, and very tall and handsome, so that the people shouted with gladness when they saw him. "Now, my people," he cried, waving his hand, "know my name. I am Makoma, the Greater, for I have slain the crocodiles in the pool, where none would venture." Then he said to his mother, "Rest gently, my mother, for I go to make a home for myself and become a hero." Then, entering his hut, he took Nuendo, his iron hammer, and throwing his sack over his shoulder, he went away. Makoma crossed the Zambezi, and for many moons he wandered towards the north and west until he came to a very hilly country where one day he met a huge giant making mountains. "Greeting," shouted Makoma. "You?" "I am Chisuas Mapeliri, who makes the mountains," answered the giant. "And who are you?" "I am Makoma, which signifies greater," answered he. "Greater than who?" answered the giant. "Greater than you," answered Makoma. The giant gave a roar and rushed upon him. Makoma said nothing, but swinging his great hammer, Nuendo, he struck the giant upon the head. He struck him so hard a blow that the giant shrank into quite a little man, who fell upon his knees, saying, "You are indeed greater than I, O Makoma. Take me with you and make me your slave." So Makoma picked him up and dropped him into the sack that he carried upon his back. He was greater than ever now, for all the giant's strength had gone into him, and he resumed his journey, carrying his burden with as little difficulty as an eagle might carry a hare. Before long he came to a country broken up with huge stones and immense clods of earth. Looking over one of the heaps, he saw a giant wrapped in dust, dragging on the very earth and hurling it in handfuls to either side of him. "Who are you," cried Makoma, "that pulls up the earth in his way?" "I am Chi Dubalabataka," he said, "and I am making the riverbeds." "Do you know who I am?" said Makoma. "I am he that is called Greater." "Greater than who?" thundered the giant. "Greater than you." With a shout, Chi Dubalataka seized a great clod of earth and launched it at Makoma. But the hero had held his sack over his left arm, and the stones and earth fell harmlessly upon it. And tightly gripping his iron hammer, he rushed in and struck the giant to the ground. Chi Dubalakaka groveled before him, and while growing smaller and smaller, and when he had become the convenient size, Makoma picked him up and put him in the sack, besides Chiioasa Mapuri. He went on this way even greater than before, as all the river maker's power had become his, and at last he came to the forest of baobabs and thorn trees. He was astonished at their size, for every one was full grown and larger than any trees he had ever seen, and close by he saw Chigwisamiti, the giant who was planting the forest. Chigwisamiti was taller than either of his brothers, but Makoma was not afraid, and called out to him, "Who are you, O big one?" "I," said the giant, Chi Yusamiti, and I am planting these baobabs and thorns as food for my children, the elephants. Leave off, shouted the hero, for I am Makoma, and would like to exchange a blow with thee. The giant, plucking up a monster baobab by its roots, struck heavily upon Makota, but the hero sprang aside, and as his weapon sank deep into the soft earth, whirled Nuendo, the hammer, round his head and felled the giant with one blow. So terrible was the stroke that Chiguasa Mitzi shriveled up as other giants had done, and when he got back his breath, he begged Makoma to take him for his servant. "For," he said, "it is honorable to serve a man as great as thou." Makoma, after placing him in his bag, proceeded upon his journey, and traveling for many days, he at last reached the country so barren and rocky that not a single living thing grew upon it. Everywhere reigned grim desolation, and in the midst of this dead region he found a man eating fire. "What are you doing?" demanded Makoma. "I am eating fire," answered the man, laughing. "My name is Chi Adoamoto, for I am the flame spirit and can waste and destroy what I like." "You're wrong," said Makoma, "for I am Makoma, who is greater than you, and you cannot destroy me." The fire eater laughed again and blew a flame at Makoma. The hero sprang behind a rock just in time, for the ground on which he was standing had turned to molten glass, like an overbaked pot, by the heat of the flame spirit's breath. Then the hero flung his iron hammer at Chi Ideamoto, and, striking him, it knocked him helpless. So Makoto placed him in the sack, Woro no, with the other great men he had overcome. Now truly, Makoto was a very great hero, for he had the strength to make hills, the industry to lead rivers over dry wastes, foresight and wisdom in planting trees, and the power of producing fire when he wished. Wandering on, one day he found a great plain, well watered and full of game, and in the middle of it, close to a large river, was a grassy spot, very pleasant to make a home upon. Makoma was so delighted with the little meadow that he sat down under a large tree, and removing the sack from his shoulder, took out all the giants and set them before him. "My friends," he said, "I have traveled far and am weary. Is not this such a place as would suit a hero for his home? Let us go, then, tomorrow, and bring in timber to make a carro." So the next day Makomo and the giants set out to get poles to build a carro, leaving only Chi Iwasmaperi to look after the place and to cook some venison which they had killed. In the evening, when they returned, they found the giant helpless and tied to a tree by one enormous hair. "How is it," said Makoma, astonished, "that we find you thus bound and helpless?" "Oh, chief," answered Chiasmaperi, "at midday a man came out of the river. He was an immense statue, and his grey mustaches were such a length that I could not see where they ended. He demanded of me, 'Who is thy master?' And I answered, 'Makoma, the greatest of heroes.' Then the man seized me, and pulling a hair from his mustache, tied me to this tree, even as you see me." Makoto was very wroth, but he said nothing, drawing his fingernail across the hair, which was as thick and strong as a palm rope, and cut it and set free the mountain walker. The 3 days following, exactly the same thing happened, only each time it was a different one of the party, and on the 4th day Makoma stayed in the camp when the others went out to cut poles, saying that he would see for himself what sort of man this was that lived in the river, and whose mustaches were so long that they extended beyond men's sight. So when the giants had gone, and he swept and tidied the camp and put some venison on the fire to roast, at midday, when the sun was right overhead, he heard a rumbling noise from the river, and looking up he saw the head and shoulders of an enormous man emerging from it. And behold, right down the riverbed and up the riverbed, till they faded in the blue distance, stretched the man's grey mustaches. "Who are you?" bellowed the giant as soon as he was out of the water. "I am he that is called Makoma," answered the hero, "and before I slay thee, tell me what thy name is, and why dost thou in the river?" "I am Chinduwao Maogiri," said the giant. My home is in the river, for my mustache is the gray fever mist that hangs above the water, and with which I bind all those who come unto me so that they die. You cannot bind me, shouted Makoma, rushing upon him and striking him with his hammer. But the river giant was so slimy that the blow slid harmlessly off of his green chest. Then Makoma stumbled and tried to regain his balance. The giant swung one of his long hairs around him and tripped him up. For a moment Makoma was helpless, but remembering the power of the flame spirit which had entered him, he breathed a fiery breath upon the giant's hair and cut himself free. As Chindeba Maguiri leaned forward to seize him, the hero flung his sack, or unograu, over the giant's slippery head. Gripping his iron hammer, struck him again. This time the blow lighted upon the dry sack, and Chindeba Maugili fell dead. When the four giants returned at sunset with the poles, they rejoiced to find Makoma had overcome the fever spirit, and they feasted on the roast venison until far into the night. But in the morning, when they awoke, Makoma was already warming his hands to the fire, and his face was gloomy. "In the darkness of the night, my friends," he said presently, "the white spirits of my fathers came upon me and spoke, saying, 'Get thee hence, Makoma, for thou shalt have no rest until thou hast found and fought with Sakatrina, who has 5 heads, and is very great and strong. So take leave of thy friends, for thou must go alone.'" Then the giants were very sad, and bewailed the loss of their hero. But Makoma comforted them, and gave back each of the gifts that he had taken from them. Then bidding them farewell, he went on his way. Makoma traveled towards the west, over rough mountains and waterlogged morasses, fording deep rivers and tramping for days across dry deserts where most men would have died, until at length he arrived at the hut standing near some large peaks. And inside the hut were 2 beautiful women. "Greeting," said the hero. "Is this the country of Sekaterina of 5 heads, whom I am seeking?" "We greet you, O great one," answered the woman. We're the wives of Sakaterina. Your search is at an end, for there stands he whom you seek." And they pointed to what Makoma thought were 2 tall mountain peaks. "Those are his legs," they said. "His body you cannot see, for it is hidden by the clouds." Makoma was astonished when he beheld how tall the giant was. But nothing daunted, he went forward until he reached one of Saturina's legs, which he struck heavily with no endo. Nothing happened, so he hit it again, and then again, until presently he heard a tired, faraway voice saying, "Who is that scratches my feet?" And Makoma shouted as loud as he could, answering, "It is I, Makoma, who is called Greater." And he listened, but there was no answer. Then Makoma collected all the dead brushwood and trees that he could find, making an enormous pile around the giant's feet, and set a light to it. This time the giant spoke. His voice was very terrible, for it was the rumble of thunders in the clouds. "Who is it?" he said, "making the fire smolder around my feet?" "It is I, Makoma," shouted the hero, "and I have come from far away to see thee, O Sakatarina, for the spirits of my fathers bade me to seek and fight with thee, lest I should grow fat and weary of myself." There was silence for a while, and then the giant spoke softly. "It is good, O Makoma," he said, "for I too have grown weary. There is no man so great as I, therefore I am all alone. Guard thyself." And bending suddenly, he seized the hero in his hands and dashed him upon the ground. And lo, instead of death, Makoma had found life, for he sprang to his feet mightier in strength and stature than ever, and rushing in, he gripped the giant by the waist and wrestled with him. Hour by hour they fought. The mountains rolled beneath their feet like pebbles in a flood. And Makoma would break away, and summoning up his strength, strike the giant with Nuendo with his iron hammer, and Sakatarina would pluck up the mountains and hurl them upon the hero, but neither one could slay the other. At last, upon the second day, they grappled so strongly that they could not break away, but their strength was failing, and just as the sun was setting, they both fell together on the ground, insensible. In the morning, when they awoke, Mulumbo the Great Spirit was standing by them, and he said, "O Makoma and Sakatarina, ye are heroes so great that no man may come against you. Therefore we will leave the world and take up your home with me in the clouds." And as he spake, the heroes became invisible to the people of earth, and were seen no more among men.